On Christmas Eve, Percy was late returning home. Thomas and Toby found the mood he was in to be far from festive. "Thank goodness that's all over," he fumed. "Christmas, who needs it?" "Who needs Christmas? Now you're just being silly, Percy," Thomas laughed.
"What's gotten you so steamed up?"
"A lady dropped her shopping getting on my train," explained Percy. "So by the time the porters had helped her pick it up, I was very late. And then passengers at all the other stations moaned at me for the delay."
"At least you did someone a good turn,"
suggested Toby.
"I'm sure she was very grateful you were—"
"She should have done her Christmas shopping earlier," snapped Percy. "I've had it with this time of year. This is easily the worst Christmas ever." "I know what you mean, Percy. The festive season seems to get more hectic every year. Passengers rushing everywhere, the number of parcels growing by the truckload. But it wasn't always like that. I remember a Christmas many years ago that was much slower and gentler, and yet I thought it was going to be the worst ever. For a while, anyway."
"I think I know the one,"
smiled Toby.
"But do tell us about it anyway."
"Anything to get a certain engine in a better mood," agreed Thomas. Percy rolled his eyes, but undeterred, Thomas began his tale. Early one frosty morning, Thomas steamed out of the shed, ready for work. "Christmas Eve today," reminded his driver, shivering a little. "Or you're looking forward to a rest tomorrow?" "Well, I'd rather keep busy," Thomas admitted. "I enjoy seeing everyone looking so jolly during the festive season. Shame it doesn't last all year round." Just then they saw the vicar's little green car passing by the yard. Thomas always whistled when he saw one of his friends, but when his driver tried to blow the whistle, nothing happened. The fireman scrambled up onto the boiler to take a look. "Begorra, it's frozen salad," he exclaimed. "Cinders and ashes. I knew it was cold last night, but not that cold." The vicar strode over to them.
"Morning all," he said. "Just popped by the station to check on the Christmas timetables. Why the long faces?"
"Sorry I wasn't able to say good morning earlier," Thomas said sadly, and he explained what had happened.
"On my soul," cried the vicar. "Can I be of any help?"
Using hot water from the driver's thermos flask, the fireman and the vicar managed to melt the ice on Thomas's whistle. "Let's try it again, shall we?" said the driver, and he pulled the chain. Still, the whistle wouldn't make a sound. "Sorry, Thomas," sighed the fireman. "It looks like it's damaged beyond repair."
"I'm afraid I cannot stay any longer," said the vicar. "It'll be a busy day for me today. I hope I'll see you both at the carol service tonight, whistle or no whistle."
Thomas tried to manage a smile, but it looked forced. "Yes, we'll both be there, vicar. Our last train arrives back here before the service starts, so we should be there on time."
"Splendid. Cheer up now, Thomas. Remember, everything happens for a reason."
With a wave, the vicar headed off, just as the station master hurried up. He looked far from cheerful.
"Hey, get a move on now. Your first train's due out."
Thomas's crew hurriedly explained about the broken whistle.
"That won't do,"
grumbled the station master.
"Looks like I shall have to cancel your trains until Toby can come down and take over."
Thomas didn't understand. "No need, sir. It's only my whistle that's broken. I can still pull a train."
"You most certainly cannot. It's against regulations to run without a whistle, even on a branch line."
The station master ordered Thomas to go and shunt at Elsbridge Junction. Thomas's heart sank lower and lower in his boiler as he made his way there. "When I said I enjoyed seeing happy faces at Christmas, I certainly wasn't thinking of the noisy, chattering trucks." "Never mind," soothed his driver as they set to work. "At least you won't be short of company." He was right. The first mainline engine to bustle in was James with a slow goods. Thomas had to shunt some vans onto the end of his train. "Well, I wasn't expecting to see you here," remarked James. "Why aren't you pulling passengers?" Thomas sighed, and when he explained about his whistle, James laughed rudely. "Huh, no wonder you're so quiet today. Wait until I tell the others." And he puffed away loudly, obnoxiously blowing his own whistle. The news soon spread down the line. It turned out Henry had very little sympathy either.
"You've always been a noisy engine,"
he sniffed.
"It will be quite a relief not to have to listen to your shrieking little whistle anymore."
By now, Thomas was beginning to wish he'd stayed in the shed that morning. Later, Gordon stopped at the junction with the express.
"I think you sometimes forget you're only a little tank engine, Thomas," he rumbled. "You don't really need a whistle. Grand, fast engines like myself need one to warn people we're coming."
"Which reminds me," Thomas said quietly, "a jammed whistle valve can be a nasty thing. Or so I've heard." This shut Gordon up right away. His pompous grin quickly disappeared, and he steamed off without a word. Presently, Thomas's fireman returned from using the telephone. "Seems the Fat Controller agrees with Gordon," he sighed. "I've just spoken with him. He said he will look into the matter of a new whistle, but he has more important things to think about at the moment." Thomas felt too miserable to reply, let alone whistle. Toby came by a little later, pulling Henrietta, Annie and Clarabelle. Seeing them all made Thomas feel much happier. "Thank you for helping today, Toby," smiled Thomas.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Nice to stretch the old wheels once in a while. How are you enjoying the yard?"
Thomas told Toby what the big engines had said.
You shouldn't let their nonsense get to you,"
comforted Toby.
"I'm sure the Fat Controller will sort you out with a new whistle soon. He knows how important they are."
"I suppose, but it's funny how much more you miss something when it's gone." Evening came. As Thomas got ready to go home, he heard raised voices from the station and noticed that the platform was crowded. "That's odd," said Thomas. "They've been waiting a while. Why hasn't James arrived yet?" The driver looked at his watch.
It's not too late. He's probably just had to wait for extra coaches or something. This is sure to be a busy train."
But he was wrong. At that moment the Fat Controller's car sped up and skidded to a halt. He jumped out in a great hurry.
"Thomas, very glad I caught you."
"What's wrong, sir?" asked the fireman.
"I'll need you to collect James's train from the big station. The turntable has frozen up and all the engines are trapped at Tidmouth Sheds."
"But we wanted to go to the kennel service," said Thomas's driver. "And what about my broken whistle?" added Thomas. "I thought it was against..."
"One at a time, please."
The Fat Controller held up his hand for quiet.
"I think we can forget about regulations just this once, Thomas. Seeing as everyone else is stuck, it will be quite safe for you to run on the main line. I'd ask our shunting engine Percy, but he just isn't strong enough for such a heavy train. And I'm afraid the situation can't be helped, driver. If Thomas does not take the singers, there won't be a carol service."
"He said I wasn't strong enough," Percy interrupted. Toby laughed.
You should have left that part out, Thomas."
"You're missing the point. I had no whistle, and all the pressure was suddenly on me. It meant I was already to blame for the delay." At Tidmouth, Gordon, Henry and James looked very sorry for themselves. Workmen passed buckets of hot water to one another to try and free the turntable. When Edward saw Thomas, he cheered excitedly.
"Well done, Thomas. You show these three how it's done."
Thomas smiled and hurried on to collect the coaches. At the big station, the shivering late passengers boarded quickly. Then Thomas puffed out into the starry night. It did feel odd travelling without whistling once, but the Fat Controller had assured Thomas's driver that all the signalmen had been alerted.
When the silence wakes you, when your nights are long, when the world forsakes you, please be strong. Nothing hurts you forever, it will fade away, and the sky will be blue again one day. No matter how cold the winter, matter how deep the snow, we will be warm again, and the grass will grow. No matter where life may take us, no matter how hard they try, they will not break us, you and I.
The station by the church looked magical, all bathed in light. They could already hear music coming from inside. Listen to that! Can't we stay for a while?
You're forgetting this isn't the last stop, Thomas, reminded the driver. There are still passengers to deliver.
It's a real pity, but we'll just have to wait until next year, that's all. Thomas reluctantly agreed and set off once more. On the way home, although he had been useful, Thomas couldn't help but feel down. Passing the now dark and silent church, he realised they had missed the carol service completely. A fine Christmas this turned out to be, Thomas sighed. The big engine stuck at Tidmouth, no carols for you, and no whistle for me.
I'm sure you'll feel much better after a day's rest tomorrow, called the driver.
I know I will, chuckled the fireman. Thomas's crew were just closing the shed doors when they all heard a distant whistle. It was very recognisable, but one rarely heard on Thomas's branch. The engine puffed proudly in with a packed train full of singing carolers. Bust my buffers! Edward, how did you get out of your shed? Edward laughed. They managed to fix the turntable a good while after you'd left. Then I was asked to run this special service for the vicar.
Yes, said the vicar, walking up. Everyone told me how you pulled the train and why your crew missed the carols. So we decided to bring the music here to you instead.
Thomas smiled more than he had done all day as the singers gathered round. After the first carol, the drivers and firemen clapped and cheered. Thomas tried to whistle, for he was so happy he'd forgotten that he couldn't. As everyone turned to go home to their families, the Fat Controller drove into the yard. He walked over to Thomas, clutching a big parcel under his arm.
An early present for you, Thomas,
he beamed warmly. Inside was a shiny new whistle.
Look after it,
the Fat Controller added.
The airfield had their new helicopter fly this over from the mainland especially.
New helicopter, Percy cut in. That must have been Harold. The very same, said Thomas, though it was a while before you two had your big race. Oh, so, in the end, that turned out to be a wonderful Christmas after all. There was a pause before Percy broke the silence. Thanks for the grand story, Thomas. Perhaps I shouldn't have been so cross earlier. Next year, I'll try harder to keep smiling. Anything to spread a bit more festive cheer. That's the spirit, smiled Thomas.
Oh dear, look at the time,
yawned Toby.
Hadn't we better get some sleep? Santa won't visit otherwise.
Quite right, agreed Thomas. Well, I think all that's left to be said is happy whistling and a Merry Christmas to all. And soon the three engines were sleeping soundly, dreaming of Christmases past, present and future.